Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope you all are doing well on this Wednesday. All right, so BYU football opens the transfer portal market here in the spring, not needing a ton. I know it sounds like kind of like, oh, thanks for burying the lead here, Jake. No, here's the deal. BYU football, let's be honest, has got essentially everything it needs coming back into the program. Now, there are some light needs maybe for BYU, but I think with this transfer portal opening, and it opens today and it's open for just 10 days in the spring. So expect a flurry of action. I don't expect a lot of BYU guys to exit the program. And if they do, I think they're guys who are further down the depth chart who may realize, hey, you know what? If that house settlement comes into effect and the roster cut downs are imposed, now, that hasn't been obviously locked in yet with this house settlement because it's still pending. But if it does, hey, I may be an odd man out. I may want to try and hit the what I'm trying to say, find a lifeboat and find a new opportunity for myself. That's understandable. I can commend any kid who can realize that, maybe see that writing on the wall and decide, you know what, I'm getting out before I'm forced out, essentially. And that's, I think, what Cale Breslin, who we talked about earlier this week, if you're an everydayer, we talked about him and why he kind of shows what the epitome of what the new reality might be in the post-house settlement era for the BYU football program. The other side of this is that there are going to be guys out there in the portal. We already saw Jaden Ott, one of the top guys in the portal, entered the portal as a graduate transfer from Cal, and then stunningly enough, a day later, signs with Oklahoma. Wonder what happened there. Wonder how quick those negotiations. Okay, here's the deal. There are conversations going on behind the scenes. It's a simple fact of how the portal operates, but we don't fully know how many guys are going to hop in the portal here. And that's where I think the curiosity for the BYU football program, Kalani Sitake, Aaron Roderick, Jay Hill, and obviously Kelly Papinga as his coordinators, how are they going to evaluate guys in the portal? I think the biggest thing you can take away from this is that BYU is in a position right now where I think they can take the best player or players available. I don't think they can take a whole litany of guys. I'm not saying that BYU is going to take 30 guys from the portal and essentially jettison another 30 guys off this roster, but I think BYU can accept a handful of guys, bring them in if they are the right type of player. Because the other thing about this is you don't want to upset the apple cart. Remember, BYU went 11-2 a year ago. You do not want to mess with the continuity that comes off a season like that. Now, nobody's satisfied, it feels like, in that program because they were oh so close to making a Big 12 title game appearance, to potentially playing in the college football playoff. All that was there for the taking. And I think that is what is really propelling this BYU football program right now, knowing how close they were, but also how far they still have to go as members of the Big 12 conference. And you don't want to mess with that because they had a good thing going a season ago. But if you can go out there, and I think the number one thing is if BYU is going to bring in somebody via the transfer portal, if they're going to be a one-year player, let's say a graduate transfer in the mold of a Jaden Ott, they better be absolutely transcendent, top 10 type talents that you're bringing in. I think BYU is better served and would be better served to bring in guys who may not be top tier prospects right now, but are guys who have multiple years, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years to develop in BYU's program because they can already bolster depth right away, despite being maybe younger with regards to their eligibility. But they come in, they learn how BYU operates, they get in BYU's development program, both strength and conditioning with the sports science program, and obviously the coaching that they will receive at BYU. They have to realize they're going to come in and maybe not be the impact player right away that they maybe hope to be, but understand you're coming into a winning football program with a chance to go and win a Big 12 title this year. And in time, with the proper development and you putting in the time, you can emerge on the other side as one of the key players in a future iteration of this BYU football team that hopes to have some long sustained success here as one of the top teams in the Big 12 conference. It's very easy to see things slip because injuries and the like could obviously soil BYU's chances of winning a Big 12 title this season or any season going forward. But I think the Cougars understand that they don't need to go into the portal and they're not looking and begging like, oh, crap, we got to get guys for this position. We got to get an answer for that. They don't have that situation right now. They're pretty well stocked essentially across the board. There are 3 key positions that I believe BYU should target if they're going to need to, I use that air quotes liberally, to target guys in the transfer portal. Those would be another tight end to pair with Carson Ryan. I know that Ethan Erickson is on the roster. Guys like Noah Moiaki are there as well. But you want to have another proven option at tight end. And if you want to see the tight end return to BYU glory, well, you got to have tight ends who demand the football. And obviously, I think a guy like Carson Ryan can do that, but he can't do it all himself. I hope that Ethan Erickson stays healthy for a full season finally, because it just hasn't happened in his BYU career to this point. But I think you look at tight end potentially to come in and be a running mate for Carson Ryan. I think along the defensive front, you probably maybe look at a defensive tackle or two to pair with Keanu Tanavasa, provide depth and obviously competition for whoever is going to be alongside Keanu. I think guys like Anisi Purcell, who already came in the winter window, they're going to be chomping at the bit to assert themselves. Incumbents, guys who are holding over like Sani Tuwala, Joshua Singh, John Taumoya Peau, I think all of those guys are saying, hey, get out of our way. We're the guy there. But I think BYU should look at defensive tackle. And if there's a premier pass rusher, a defensive end, or outside linebacker, yeah, you absolutely entertain that as well, because you can never have too much pass rush. And BYU's learned that the hard way the last few seasons, because the sack output has not been where it needed to be. Now, the interceptions have been pretty nice, but they need to get more havoc plays in the backfield, forcing fumbles, getting sacks, and the like. And I think you look at pass rushing if there is a premier type talent out there in that regard. Now, that's going to cost you money, obviously, in NIL, but I think the situation with BYU right now is very clear that if BYU requires funds, whether it's in basketball or football, they can come up with the funds. The boosters have put the money where their mouth is. That's beside the point. The final position group I would be targeting if I'm BYU is at cornerback. I do think that guys like Maury Bamba, Evan Johnson are very capable players, but you can never have, as I mentioned, too much depth. And I think with the young players, Trey Alexander, Jonathan Cabea, and the like, maybe one more body in that corner room could really do some wonders for Gennaro Guilford's confidence in his unit. It's not that he doesn't have confidence in them right now. I can tell you that Coach G, he is uber confident in the guys he brings in, because he is meticulous in how he goes about offering, selecting guys when it comes to the portal. Obviously, when he brings guys into BYU, he knows what he's looking for. And if he finds the right guy out there, I think BYU would do well to add a cornerback to this rotation, if not challenge for playing time and a starting spot right away. But the nice part is those three positions, they're not like dire straits for BYU. They're just luxury in many respects. So let me reiterate. I think the BYU will do work in the transfer portal. They can bring in a handful of guys. I wouldn't imagine it's more than 10 at the very, very most. You'd have to have 10 pretty outstanding guys for BYU to go to that many. But if they bring in that many guys, that means that many guys potentially could be on their way out as well due to roster constraints if this house settlement comes into effect. The third part is, I think the situation for BYU is it's not, like I said, positions of need. It's more about, hey, that player's really, really good. He can make us better. Let's bring him in. And it's regardless of position. Quarterback on down the list. If they find a guy they believe they can help them win, by golly, get him into Provo, Utah, and get him inside this football program and see what they can do. All right. Final thing with regards to this transfer portal cycle. It could be massive paydays for certain guys. And if you have those proverbial skills that pay the bills, there are going to be booster groups, NIL collectives, who are going to be willing to fork over some cash in this portal window, because it's really the last time they might be able to do that. I'll explain more momentarily.